Chapter 1. They Didn't Run. In May 1940, the world watched France fall. Or at least that is how history chose to remember it. Images of refugees on the roads, a government signing an armistice, a nation supposedly collapsing in 6 weeks. For decades, one idea dominated the narrative. France did not fight. But buried beneath that simplified story lies a truth far more disturbing and far more heroic. Because while strategy failed at the top, the men on the ground fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemy. The enemy's surprise. German soldiers crossed the border expecting speed and fear. What they encountered instead was resistance. In after-action reports recovered from German archives, officers repeatedly described French units as dangerous, unpredictable, and stubborn to the point of self-destruction. One Wehrmacht officer wrote, "They fire until the last cartridge, then they charge with bayonets." This was not propaganda. This was an enemy speaking in private. The German advance did not roll over empty ground. It smashed headfirst into soldiers who refused to break. The myth of collapse. France did not lose because its soldiers lacked courage. It lost because its command structure was frozen in the past, slow to react, fragmented, and blind to the speed of modern warfare. But on the battlefield, courage was everywhere. French infantry units held villages long after they were surrounded. Tank crews fought until their machines were burning wrecks. Artillerymen continued firing as German units closed in from multiple directions. These were not isolated acts. They were repeated, documented, and feared. Hannut, the first shock. On May 12, 1940, near Hannut in Belgium, French and German armored forces collided in the largest tank battle the world had yet seen. 300 French tanks, many considered obsolete on paper, faced nearly 700 German Panzers. For 4 days, the French held. German advances slowed, losses mounted. The myth of invincible blitzkrieg cracked for the first time. The battle did not end in a glorious victory, but it bought time that would later save hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers retreating toward Dunkirk. Stonne, the Verdun of 1940. Further south, a small Ardennes village became a slaughterhouse. Stonne changed hands 17 times in just 2 weeks. French and German units fought room to room, cellar to cellar. Tanks fired point-blank down narrow streets. Entire platoons were wiped out to hold a single crossroads. German veterans later compared Stonne to Verdun, not for its size, but for its brutality. And at the center of it all stood a single French tank, the Char B1 bis, In 20 minutes, it destroyed 13 German tanks and 2 anti-tank guns. The Germans could not penetrate its armor. They could only watch it burn through their lines. What history forgot. These battles did not fit the story France later told about itself, nor the story Germany wanted remembered, so they were buried. But courage does not disappear just because it is ignored. And in 1940, French soldiers did not run. They stood, they fought, and they terrified the enemy who expected them to break. Chapter 2. Fighting while the world collapsed. By mid-May 1940, France was unraveling at the top. Headquarters issued contradictory orders. Entire armies were repositioned too late. Radio communications failed. Political leaders hesitated, argued, and froze. But on the ground, French soldiers kept fighting, often without knowing the larger situation had already collapsed. They were not retreating from defeat. They were fighting inside it. holding the line without hope. Across northern France and Belgium, French units found themselves cut off, flanked, or surrounded. Yet they stayed. Many never received retreat orders. Others received them too late. In towns like Gembloux, Arras, and Sedan's outskirts, infantry regiments dug in and resisted until ammunition ran out. German units advancing behind armored spearheads suddenly encountered pockets of resistance that refused to disappear. Every delay cost Germany fuel, time, and men. And time in May 1940 was everything. The Siege of Lille. Nowhere was this more visible than in Lille. Between May 28th and May 31st, nearly 40,000 French soldiers, isolated, outnumbered, and encircled, faced more than 150,000 German troops. They could have surrendered immediately. They did not. For 4 days, they fought street by street, building by building. German assaults stalled. Artillery was brought in. Casualties mounted. Those 4 days mattered. While Lille burned, Dunkirk lived. Every hour the French held Lille was another hour for Allied soldiers to reach the beaches and board evacuation ships. German respect earned in blood. When the fighting finally ended, something extraordinary happened. Impressed by the resistance, German commanders granted the French defenders of Lille a rare honor. They were allowed to march into captivity with their weapons, under arms. It was an admission no propaganda film could erase. These men had not been defeated easily. Numbers that rewrite the story. In just 6 weeks of fighting, the French army inflicted losses that shocked even the German high command. 90,000 German soldiers killed or wounded. Around 1,000 German tanks destroyed, nearly half of the armored force committed in the campaign. These losses were higher than those suffered by Germany and Poland, Norway, Belgium, and the Netherlands combined. This was not a rout. It was a brutal, grinding campaign, lost by strategy, not by courage. Why no one remembered? After the war, this truth became inconvenient. Nazi propaganda needed a story of effortless victory. Vichy France needed to justify surrender. Post-war France preferred to focus on resistance and liberation, not defeat. So the soldiers of 1940 were forgotten. Not because they failed, but because they fought in a war their leaders had already lost. The real legacy of 1940. The French soldier of 1940 did not abandon his post. He fought until he was surrounded, until his weapon jammed, until the order finally came or never did. History erased him, but the enemy remembered. Chapter 3. Why Courage Was Not Enough. Courage was everywhere in May 1940. But courage alone does not win modern wars. France did not fall because its soldiers lacked bravery. It fell because bravery was sent into battle without vision, speed, or unity. A war prepared for the past. The French High Command was not incompetent by accident. It was trapped in memory. Scarred by World War I, French doctrine was built around defense, attrition, and static lines. The Maginot Line symbolized this mindset, a belief that wars were won by holding ground, not by seizing momentum. But the enemy had changed. Germany did not plan to fight the last war again. It planned to break the battlefield itself. Blitzkrieg, speed as a weapon. German strategy was not based on superior numbers. It was based on speed, coordination, and shock. Tanks did not wait for infantry. Aircraft did not merely support, they led. Radios connected units in real time, allowing commanders to exploit opportunities instantly. French tanks were often stronger individually, but they were scattered, unsupported, and blind. By the time orders reached the front, the situation had already changed. Nowhere was this clearer than the Ardennes. French planners believed the forest was impassable to massed armor. It was lightly defended. When German panzer divisions emerged from it, the response was hesitation. Counterattacks were debated. Orders were rewritten. Time slipped away. Within days, German forces reached the Channel, slicing the Allied armies in two. The war was not lost in battle. It was lost in hours of indecision. Men who paid the price for strategic blindness. French soldiers paid the price. Units were ordered to hold positions that no longer mattered. Others were sent forward without air cover, without reserves, without coordination. They fought anyway. They fought because retreat meant abandonment, because surrender felt worse, because duty demanded resistance even when logic did not. Heroism became sacrifice. Sacrifice became silence. A defeat misunderstood. History simplified the collapse of 1940 into a myth that France gave up. The truth is harsher and more human. France fought bravely inside a system that could no longer protect those who fought for it. The tragedy was not cowardice, it was misalignment between modern war and outdated thinking. What 1940 really teaches us: the fall of France is not a lesson about national weakness. It is a warning. Wars are not won by courage alone, not by memory, not by monuments to past victories. They are won by adaptation. The French soldier adapted too late. His leaders never did.